Hello, hello. Tanya Paxett, the Truthpreneur here. What is happening? What's going on? And welcome to another Moments of Truth show. Now, I almost felt like Gary Vee when I did that show. Okay. Yeah, I was like show and pause. All right. Anyway, so no redo. So we're just going to flow with that one. But I have Marlo Ellis here. I love this woman. I swear, we connected on Freedom Hackers and I don't know what happened from there. It was just like we were speaking each other's language and just, you have those people that you just kind of connect with and it'll be that long-term thing. And we started working on a project together and it's going to be really awesome. But, it all came with, she just wanted to know my testimony. And in that, I got to hear her testimony of how she stepped into entrepreneurship and she always wanted to be, but it was just one of these things that, life happens. And then after certain circumstances, though, she overcame. And when you hear her story, it's like, wow. I hate to say story because it's so much more than that, right? It's somebody's life. But Marlo, tell us a little bit about yourself first, what you do now and what made you want to get on this show and reveal that truth.
Well, first of all, thank you, Tanya, for inviting me. Woo-hoo! Yes. Besos a todos. I really just want to say how grateful I am to be here. I love stepping up and talking about my stuff, dumping my junk. Every time I tell the story, it just makes me feel that much lighter. And I think that will always be the case. And it's just something that's really powerful for me. And I know that it's powerful. I gotta make sure. It's really powerful as well for the people who are listening, because I think people need to understand. And this is why I think it's important that I talk about this. People need to understand that your mess can become your message, that in fact, you can, move from the darkness to the light, all of that stuff. And I just think it's so important to, kind of step forward and let people know that you can live the life of your dreams, but it's going to take work. And that's really my biggest message. I'm a freedom coach for women. And really what I do is I help women find their voice. And then through that, basically own what it is that they deserve to have in life, and then really step into that with their power unapologetically. I mean, that's really my goal, is to just really give them courage, for lack of a better word, to just move through the junk, and get unstuck. And because I did, and at the time I didn't think that I could, and now I'm here, honestly sitting in my soul seat. I'm just as happy as I could ever be, doing exactly what I've always wanted to do. And it took me so much to get here, but I think it's important that other people see that when you do the work and when you're willing to just push forward and, have really serious belief in yourself and pull all the resources in around you, that it works, right? So what I'm doing now is I'm really working with other women, guiding them to the same place that I am now, from where, from their dark place or from their place of struggle. So.
And that's awesome. And I love it, because you said two things here. Well, that that it takes time to get there, and that it's going to take work. And that's why I started this. It was nothing but just that. It was just, I wanted to hear other entrepreneurs' story just because I love it, and how people started business in their journey. But I wanted to show people that are in business that everybody has a story. Everybody has those ups and downs. And just because we turn on the video and be like, and now we're smiling and cheesing, honestly, it doesn't mean that it was always like that. Yes, we'll cross music. It's I like that statement. It takes time and work, and it does.
Absolutely.
And I think that when people start business, it is like anything. But what happens is people are willing to do things like take the time to live life, or take the time to climb the corporate ladder, right? Think about it. It takes like 15, 20, 30, 40 years before you're from like, that little peon in the mailroom to like over here. And but at the same time, people are willing to go through it, right? But they're not willing to do it for their own self and their business. So I love when you did that, when you said that, that really just kind of reminded me of that. And so I want to definitely get into your story. Guys, there's little hands right under her picture, her video. Definitely give her props. Click on that a bunch of times. Give her props. Give her love. Let her know that you love her. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yes. And then definitely tell a little birdie, because you're going to want to hear this story. All right. You have to, yeah, you're going to want to hear the story. Now, what I love about Marlo and her business and her life and her story is that she allowed it to progress. So she went from coaching in health and fitness into something different and transitioning into more of an inner health and healing. And it was so awesome because she didn't resist it. She just kind of flew with it and didn't say, you know, okay, well, I can't do this because I am in this box and I built my brand off being a health coach. She pushed past it. And so I just wanted to applaud you for that. Yay.
Thank you.
And then also just, you know, use this as like that platform to just come out and say, you know, this is why I transitioned. So I want to bring that up before we get into your story.
Okay.
How did you, what was that journey of transitioning and saying, I'm okay with, what was that moment of truth for you? I'm okay with coming from that health perspective and fitness and kind of tweaking that brand a little bit or adding on to that brand.
Right.
What was that moment of truth for you?
Well, you know, it was kind of a series of strange events that led to the moment. But the moment really was last year in Newport Beach, California at Lori Harder's Bliss Project. And in February of last year, I had made the decision really last minute that I needed to go. And I decided that I needed to go by myself. And I needed to do that in order to extract myself from all of the outside influences that I knew were going to play a part in the decision making, because often, you know, if people have an emotional attachment to something, it's like getting out of a relationship. If you ask all your friends, you know, I don't know what to do about this, they're gonna say, if they love the guy or if they love the situation, they're gonna say, oh, but he's so great, right? And it wasn't about the fact that my gym wasn't great. That wasn't the problem. The problem was Marlo was growing out of it, and I was starting to kind of like bust out at the seams, and it was no longer serving me. And I think it's really important that when we step into our purpose in life, that we remember that it has to serve us too. I mean, we're not supposed to be slaves to other people for our entire lives. And I think that sometimes people get caught up in that. You know, they worry that I always have to be kind of serving everybody else, and my own feelings and my own, you know, my own purpose is not going to be fed. And for me, you know, I owned this beautiful gym. I had an amazing facility with all these phenomenal clients. The majority of them were women, and I was really helping them transform their lives. But something was missing for me. And I think probably part of the problem was that I was watching my clients transform their bodies, but I would watch them walk out the door and I knew that they were still in pain. And that was where my personal struggle came in, because I had lived a life of health and fitness, but I was dying from the inside out. What was going on in my personal life, you know, was a whole other story. And I thought that me being fit, healthy, and having the quote unquote hot body, or the body that I wanted, was going to fix me and make my life perfect. It had no bearing on what was going on in my soul, actually. And so as I started recognizing some of the symptoms, signs and symptoms, my clients were getting in shape, but they were still unhappy. They still had broken marriages and broken souls and broken pieces. And so I started realizing, if I want to really be an effective coach and really transform their lives, I need to step out of just training their bodies and start working from the inside out, because that's where the real healing is going to come. And one of the greatest struggles that I was noticing is my clients would have these phenomenal transformations, but they wouldn't be able to maintain it. And once I started kind of doing the research behind it, it's because they didn't have the emotional strength. You know, they would get fit and get strong physically, but they didn't have the mindset. They didn't have the foundation built up underneath all of that to really, you know, to really maintain it. And that was from the broken pieces. And so I realized, in order to actually make a difference in people's lives for the long term, I needed to step out of the four walls and actually help people kind of work from the inside out, not from the outside in. So that's where that happened. So I went to the Bliss Project in Newport Beach, California last year, and I went into that with the thought that there was a really good chance that I had to make a decision. And I needed other people around me who were entrepreneurial spirits and who weren't emotionally attached to my facility to listen and just kind of go through the process with me, because maybe I didn't need to close the gym. Maybe there was another answer, but I just didn't have the answer. But really what my language was through that weekend, as I realize now, was that every time I had a conversation with somebody, I was telling them that I wanted to close my gym, that I had bigger plans. I wanted to have a greater reach. A global reach was the language that I had used at the time. And I said, I just really don't think that I can do it from within my four walls. Yeah. And so that was the TSN turning point for me. It really was. I came back, and I believe the following week, I made the announcement to a few very close people to me that that was my decision. And then I moved from there.
Awesome. I love
that was a lot. Sorry.
I'm like taking notes. I love how you said that it has to serve you, and a lot of individuals really struggle with that because they think that they have to serve the client, which absolutely they do have to serve that client. But at the same time, they're serving themselves, because as you're fulfilling your destiny, as you're walking that path, there is an excitement and health, and mentally and physically in all aspects, right? In your 9 environments, it all is affected. So I love it, because I always say, follow your passion. It's the pathway to your destiny. But what I love is that you used that passion as a foundation, because all the stuff that you learned in the business that you built, it wasn't for naught. It really allowed you to come out. You're still using it right now. And now you're being able to transpose them and bring them into just a powerful duo. And I love it.
Right.
And
more effective.
Exactly. And you know what? And you're still hot, and you still have a hot body, but now you're holding well. I don't know if you guys have seen this woman, but she's freaking gorgeous. I'm jealous. I'm like, I'm not getting on stage with you next year looking how I look. But I figured out
you are, sister.
That was my thyroid. So I was like, yes, I figured it out. So now it's that journey of transforming the body, right? So
but again, you had to work from the inside out, and it really is about that, about the healing,
It really, really is. And so
recognizing it.
But what I love that you did here, and then we'll go into your story. What I love that you did here was that you went for help. And, I think it's really cool that you were able to recognize that you had to step out your comfort zone in your box and ego and get humble and say, I need transformation, I need change, and that you were willing to mastermind. And what a lot of people don't realize is the power of the fact that when you don't, the principal thing is to seek wisdom. And if you don't have wisdom, which is knowledge plus experience, you need to go find somebody who does. And then you can figure out all the other good why, what, and how, and all that other great stuff, right?
Exactly.
So you went and said, I am going to go seek out wisdom, and you sought it out. And now you're able to build something amazing. So I love how you did that. So let's get into the goods from abuse, right? Abuse, mentally and neglect. And, I love how you had the beginning of your life was a great life, right? You
perfect.
It was right. It was like that Brady Bunch kind of look, and a lot of individuals think that those people don't suffer anything. And in sight, I think that sometimes you suffered more because you were not prepared at all when you went to go meet this, this problem here. So tell me your story.
Okay. One of the things I've learned through this whole thing is that we all suffer, right? In our own way. And, there was a time in my life, I've always been kind of the go-to girl for my friends. I've always been the person who people would call and say, this is what's going on. And and I think it's always because I've just really loved hearing people talk. I love to chit chat. I used to spend hours on the phone when I was a young girl, and usually it was us talking about our stuff, right? But what happened was I never really understood what it was like to be in a relationship that wasn't perfect, or in a family situation that wasn't perfect. And so I was really living out of kind of a life of ignorance. And so the first thing I want to say is everything that's happened for me, I don't want to say to me, happened for me in my life has been a complete gift. And the person who I kind of entered into a situation with that wasn't ideal, if he would take time to talk to me, I would thank him, because I now understand that everybody only ever does the best that they can do with what they have, right? And my background and my childhood were so different than his. And so for that reason, I now understand his broken pieces. And at the time I didn't, but it has helped me grow. And it's also helped me become a much more effective coach. I mean, as far as really working with people who are in painful situations, I can now say, yeah, sister, I'm there, or whatever, because I get it. But there was a time when I didn't get it. And you really, like you said, you have to have, wisdom is experience plus knowledge. And I had knowledge, but I had no experience, which equaled nothing when it came to helping people. So anyway, a little bit of my story is that I was a teacher for 10 years. I have a teaching background as my formal education, my formal professional background was teaching. I taught for 10 years basically from 30 to 40. And then when I turned 40, strangely enough, I decided that I better do something quick with my life because I was turning 40 and I didn't feel like anything that I had done was necessarily significant. So, which isn't true, but I just felt that way. So I decided that I want to hit the fitness stage and actually kind of push myself at 40 years old to have the best body I'd ever had at the oldest I'd ever been. And I did it. And I got first place in figure on a master's level at that time. So I was really jacked about that. And I started falling in love with fitness. And what happened was all of my colleagues and my girlfriends around me started coming to me wanting help to transform, right? And because I'm a teacher and because it's just in my personality to help, I started helping other people, which led to me training people kind of in the pockets of my day at the school gym. And then what I realized was I was falling in love with transforming bodies and watching people really grow. It's one thing to teach high school, kids really, they don't want to be there. And so I was finding that a struggle, whereas people coming to you and saying, I want you to help me, and really wanting to be in that space, that's a whole other scenario. So I ended up coaching all kinds of women and having a lot of success. And I moved back to my hometown in 2011 because I wanted to bring my transformation business home and work with my friends and family, and people were reaching out to me saying, come home. So I came home and I found a fitness facility that I was able to share with somebody. And kind of long story short, we fell into a relationship that, was great. It was what it was. But I ended up kind of being in a situation that I didn't have the tools to cope with. And it was the darkest time of my life. And again, everybody does the best that they can do with what they have, with the resources that they have. And I did the best that I could do. And I'm quite sure that the person, that was in the relationship with me at the time did the best that they were able to do. And we were struggling, and it was just a toxic relationship. And I'm sure he would agree. And it was just, it was abusive in that, there was a lot of, manipulation, and there was a lot of negative talk and kind of emotional messing. And I didn't have any of the tools, and I didn't even recognize it. And I look back and I think, man, I remember I used to say to my girlfriends, why don't you, if it's not good for you, why don't you just get out? That was my answer for everybody. Well, now I realize that it's not that easy, that there's so much going on, because that doesn't mean you're not in love with the person or that you don't care about them. Things just aren't right. Things just aren't right in the world of your relationship. And so anyway, there were a lot of warning signs for me. Yellow flags went up and then red flags went up. And finally I decided that, that I needed to be out. And I think he had made that decision as well, to be out. And so he just did it in a different way. And so anyway, I knew that I needed to get out of the situation that I was in, and I had to do it quickly because really there were a lot of things at risk and in danger. And I needed to get out, and I needed to save myself. And so what I did was I took matters into my own hands, and I built a gym literally like in 6 weeks. I went from zero to building a gym, building a space so that I had somewhere to go. And the day that the locks were changed, which was like the last day that I put the paint on the walls of my gym, the locks were changed, and I was out, right? So I was literally on the street, but I had found a way, I'd found resourcefulness, and had built a gym in, kind of under his nose. And I was able to walk away with my clientele and with my life. And I extracted myself from that toxic situation, and we're both much better for it. We both I'm guessing he's thriving. I don't know, but I certainly thrived after that point. But the other side of the story is it was a very painful, dark time for me. I lost everything. I lived in the basement of my gym, which was a cellar. It wasn't like a finished basement. It was a cellar, and I lived there for a year while I built my business. And it was the hardest time of my life, probably almost more of a struggle than the painful relationship, because I had all of the fallout to deal with, right? I had the broken heart. I was broke. I had nothing. I was trying to kind of find my way through business ownership, which was not my strength. I have no business background. But I was surrounded by phenomenal people who lifted me, and they were the wind beneath my wings. And a year in, I was able to move out of the basement and move back into my home. And then I actually expanded my gym. So my business literally flourished once I made the decision to fly, and to take matters into my own hands. And I took control of my life at that point. I really did. I had to stop looking to everybody else for answers. And that's kind of where the journey to my freedom coaching started, was when I realized that, everything can look real nice from the outside, but if you have broken pieces, if you're not fixed, you're not going to be able to function well in the relationship. I mean, I have to say I was not a healthy person in that relationship either. I wasn't. And it would be silly for me to try to say that I was. I was coming in maybe with blinders on, and maybe my expectations were high. And I'm sure that I didn't react to a lot of things the way that I should have reacted, because I didn't have the skills. Nobody teaches you when you're 3 how to deal with trauma and abusive relationships just in case.
Yeah.
You have those skills, right? You really have to be in it. You have to experience it in order to know what it feels like.
Absolutely. I remember going through abuse, physical and mental, in my previous marriage, and it was very difficult, especially when you're dealing with life, and life goes on. Things happen. They're constantly moving, and you can't stop the time, right? So you can heal. And so you mentioned that you had friends and family and that type of thing, but I know for me, even with friends and family, through the things that I've gone through,
right,
that there was a lot of those times that while they were support, there was a lot of alone time and there was a lot of, oh gosh, decision making. So my question to you is, what was that? When you had that moment of truth, first of all, really, what was that moment of truth? Like, I have to be done. And when that moment of truth came, how did you stick to that moment of truth through life and business? Because not only did you transition in life, but you let your business go through it. And I'm sure you didn't just throw up on your clients either. So, how did you manage to keep that all going? And I know you had tough times, but what can you tell somebody that's doing the same thing right now? Whether abuse, or there's a death in the family, or maybe they're sick, or however, but when you make that moment of truth, how do you stick to that?
So are you talking about when I decided to open the gym and go out on my own?
Yes, when you finally said, with the abusive situation, what was that moment of truth, and how did you stick to that and say, I'm going to go build this gym behind his back and do what I got to do to get out?
Survival.
So
I mean, really,
instinct. Was it more instinct?
What I did was, I started really paying attention to my gut, my voice, the inner voice. And I had been ignoring it for a year and a half, which is why I was where I was. Had I paid attention to it, I would have never stepped into that relationship. There were yellow flags long before we entered into a relationship, actually, which is interesting, but I had decided that I needed to put myself first for the first time. I made really hard decisions around what it was going to look like, what people were going to think. And I just decided not to care. And that I would always say to people, I did what was best for both of us. And it really was. And I know he would agree. And but it was really about survival. At the time, I was just it was like pulling down the oxygen mask. It was like, you either do it or you don't. You either choose or you don't choose. It's either black or white. There's no gray area. And when I coach people, I talk about the fact that when it comes to big decisions, it's either black or white. If you're gray, if you're in the gray area, you're not doing it. Right. And so I had to decide that I was making the move, and then I made the move and I never turned back. It wasn't, oh, we'll see what happens. It was like, I'm moving forward, not looking back. Not going to trash him, not going to try to destroy his career, not going, I moved forward literally moved forward. And I had to, and that was because I had to build something. I had, I still had a very deep desire to help other people. And so that hadn't changed through all of this. And so probably my clients at the time were really what kept me focused, because every day, whether I'm going through junk or not, they're showing up at 6 a.m. They don't want to hear my stuff. They don't care really at the end of the day, what's going on in my personal life. I had to show up. You got to show up. And if you're going to tell people you're going to do something, you better freaking do it. So when people came to my gym and said, I want you to train me and transform my body, and I said, okay, they weren't there with me because they wanted to hear my junk,
Absolutely. I love that.
They wanted to be with me because they wanted me to do what I promised to do. So what I've realized now is that I need to promise people that I'll help them get through what I've been through, And so in order for me to be constantly living in my purpose and in my passion, I had to recognize that transforming bodies is still really important to me, and it's something that I love to do. But I also had to recognize that if I was really going to help people, like to the degree that I know that they need to be helped, I had to step out of training bodies and start training souls first. That was really where it was all going to break down. And
well, at the end though, it's still reaching your goal, because your main passion, your main goal is to transform bodies. But what is the point if they can't maintain it? So right. You have to figure out, okay, there's a need here. These women are not maintaining their bodies. They're not literally falling into that place of peace. And so that's a problem in itself. So while you might think that you're effective, in all actuality, you're not. Because right. You're just handling the outer. Now, they got what they wanted. They got what they paid for. But when are you going to step in and over-deliver? And right. That's what I love that you did. You said, not only am I going to do that, but I saw the need, and now I'm going to over-deliver. And that's why I like how you work, because and we work well together, because a lot are going to, I know, and a lot are going to be like, oh, okay, well, that's not what I'm going to step into because of whichever. But you always want to over deliver and give that value. So I love what you
know. There's a need. There's so many broken pieces out there. I mean,
exactly.
And we all want to kind of walk strongly. There's nothing more. Oh, what's the word? Satisfying. There's nothing more gratifying than being able to literally sit on here today, tell my story, be completely honest and open about it, and then know that I'm doing exactly the right thing, and it's the right thing for me. It's not necessarily the right thing for everybody else, but I've always wanted to help people, and I've always wanted to give and serve, and it's just shifted. Before I'd had that experience, I was a fitness trainer, and I was great at it, and I was helping people transform their bodies like crazy, and it's still something that I'm really good at and something I really love. But after that experience, I realized that part of my own healing journey was helping others heal. And every time I tell this story, I feel that much more healed and that much more liberated, and so it just makes sense to me. And I just want everybody else, I want anybody who's on this call to realize that if there's something pulling you, and that was where that moment, that TSN turning point came last year at Lori Harder's Bliss Project. And I'm going back there this year kind of as my alma mater, and I'm going to do a testimonial about my story, and I'm super excited about it. She's asked me to actually share. Yeah. But I just think it's really, really important that you feel the pull. Don't push it down, because you know what? If you push it down, it's just going to come out. Like I always say, if you go like this, it's going to go like that. Right. So I know you can't see my arms, but I'm pushing out. So that voice doesn't get quiet. It just finds other ways to manifest itself. So I fought it for a really long time, And that's when I was trying to decide to close, when I was making the decision to close my gym. And it was such a struggle. The reason I was struggling was because I wasn't paying any attention to my voice. The moment I said, boom, it's time for me to move on, you know, this work that I'm doing isn't serving me anymore. I need to feel like I'm in service. I need to feel like I have a purpose. Then all of a sudden it was like, and the voice just came out. It was just like, thank you. It was like a release, you know, it just kind of came up and out. And it's just been easy. It's so easy.
Yeah, I love how you said that, you know, embrace that. I like to say embrace that fear and inner voice.
Right.
A lot of individuals are like, oh, I've heard multiple times in just reading and studies and stuff where they're just like, you know, just push past that fear. And while that's great, sometimes you have to actually listen to the voice. It can
always.
It can reveal a lot to you.
Yeah.
Your fear, when you embrace that fear and say, why am I afraid? Am I afraid because, you know, maybe there's a past experience that, it, you know, in the past have subconsciously been ingrained in my brain. So there's a trigger there where I shouldn't be afraid, but my mind's telling me, oh, I've been here before and it's uncomfortable. And I don't want to do this. And that's the power of our brain, right? It helps us stay in that comfort zone and protects us when there's something in danger. But at the same time, we have to be able to push past that. And we have to be able to say, okay, why am I afraid? Is it logical? Is it logical that you were in an abusive relationship and that you could lose everything if you didn't take action and you would just stay there? Is that logical? Absolutely not. So when you embrace that inner voice and say, no, it's not logical, then the next thing to do is say, I'm going to fix it. And so I love that. So what you said you wanted to give us 5 tips or steps or breakouts or whatever you wanted to call them.
Right.
So I definitely let them know where they can find you first. Okay. And then just head right into those tips because I am very excited to hear about those tips. Okay. And I know you also have some other stuff coming up and programs and good stuff. So we'll talk about those after you're done.
Right. Okay. So first of all, I am a freedom coach. And so the work that I'm doing now is really kind of helping, like I said, helping women step into their power and to find and I call it a freedom coach because I really try to show people that freedom is possible. Because until we're really living authentically and until we're really kind of standing in our power, we're not free. If we're living the life that somebody else wants us to live, we're not free. And so that's why I call myself a freedom coach. And, you know, I like to give people actionable steps, right? I mean, I could probably give you 20 tips, but, you know, 5 is easy. But I think the number one most important thing that you have to do is you have to recognize your breakdown. I think that's huge. And for myself, for a while, I wasn't able to recognize my breakdown. And I had to dig deep and I had to figure out what was breaking down in my life. What was the problem? Because of course, I'm sure every single person on this call will agree. When somebody says, how are you doing today? I'm fine, thanks. How are you? I'm great. Walk away. Okay. So how many times do we do that in a day? So eventually you start kind of convincing yourself that you're okay. I mean, what we repetitively do, we are, and we believe that we are. And it goes both ways, right? And so what I stopped doing is I stopped saying I was okay.
Oh, wow.
And that's not to say that somebody say, how are you? And I'd say, well, let me tell you. But it was like, I just stopped lying to myself and to everybody else, right? And so if somebody would say, how are you doing? I'd say, well, you know, things are good. It depends on the situation, right? But things are good. Or, but if it's a friend who's like, how are you doing? I'd say, well, you know, I'm really struggling right now, actually, but I'm moving through it. Like, you don't have to blame into it. But my point is that I really did recognize my own breakdown. That was the hugest thing is you have to get real, guys. You have to be honest with yourself. If you're feeling like something's not right, then you're going to have to take some time and fold inwards and do some work. And that's why I said it takes work to get there, you know? So that's number 1. Number 2 is listen to your voice. Listen to that, follow the pull, you know, listen to your guts, listen to your voice. Don't ignore the rumblings in your belly, all of that stuff. Pay attention to it. We are created as animals to have all kinds of mechanisms that show us the signs long before the danger hits. And that's because we are animals, right? So it's like, you know, when dogs, remember when the big tsunami? I love this example. The tsunami and all of the animals were up at the top of the mountain. I can't remember where the tsunami came exactly. It's been so long, but remember all the dogs and all the horses and everything and the cows? There were no animals at the bottom of the mountain when the tsunami hit. And it's because the animals have 4 feet on the ground and they were completely tuned in to what was going on. They followed their instincts and they left. Okay? What do humans do? Stand around and see what happens. You know, oh, something's going on, right? Like, follow your instincts, get the F out of H. And so what I did was I seriously started listening to my voice, like listening to my inner grumblings and saying something's not right. And in my Creating Healthy Boundaries course that I just ran, this free challenge last week, the biggest thing that I was talking to these girls about was listening to those, like being very aware of the no-fly zones, the yellow flags, the red flags. You don't have to get to a red flag. We get lots of warnings along the way. The writing was on the wall. I should have known. All the signs were there. Like, you know, all that language, right?
Yes.
So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is have a plan. You know, so you have to know your breakdown, and then you have to listen to your voice, and then you have to have a plan. What's your plan? Right? So now that you know that things aren't right, or now that you know that it's time to move on, or now that you know that it's time to grow, how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? And that's, you know, you don't have to have all of the answers. You don't. Let me tell you, I went to a guy and I said to this guy, when I knew I needed to open a gym in like 6 weeks, I said to him, I need a space to open a gym. I have no money, $0, and I need it for, you know, I think it was like, I needed it for November 1st or whatever, right? It was like the middle of September. And I said to him, I can't pay you first month's rent. And guess what he said? You're in. He said, okay. Wow. So I just stepped out, which is point number 4. You have to step out and start asking people for help. But point number 3 is have a plan. So I started building my plan. I knew that I had to have a space. I knew that I was going to have to take my clients somewhere. I knew that I was going to have to get my shit together, because I was about to launch into something that was bigger than myself. But it was me surviving, right?
Yeah.
And then point number 4, like I said, was start reaching out for help. And so I started asking people that I never thought, I mean, he was somebody that was an acquaintance, not a friend. I didn't know him, and he could have easily looked at me and said, are you kidding me? Like, first of all, it was a big secret. So I was trusting him with my everything, that he wasn't going to say anything about it, right? But I just stepped into myself. And I just thought, it's time for Marlo to buck up. You know, I need to be a big girl, pull out my big girl panties, and I need to start doing stuff. So I did, you know, so I started asking. And then number 5 is take action. I just started literally moving forward. That was it. I just had to start acting. And the thing is, you know, launch before you're ready. I love that. You know, so many people say that, especially in the world of business, launch before you're ready. Steve Jobs was creating Apple, whatever, in his garage. He didn't wait to have $2 million to build a 20 floor high rise to employ 1 million people. No, he actually started in his garage. Launch before you're ready. And because if you don't, guess what? You're going to be in exactly the same place, wishing all the same things, and you're going to be stuck. And I needed to get unstuck. I was not ready to live my life like that. So those are my 5 tips. And don't ask me to repeat them because I don't know. I don't have them written down. No, but anyway, I know what they are. But, you know, like, seriously.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I like that launch before you're ready, because honestly, you're really never ready. Because, you know, after 15 years of me being in business, there's some things I'm still not ready for, right. You know, where I'm pretty introverted, you know, so why am I doing a show, or why am I doing this, or why am I doing that? And so, you know, was I ready? Well, no, not necessarily, but you know, that's the avenue that I needed to go. Right. And so, you know, you're always going to run into some bumps in the road, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if anybody wants to jump in and take a seat, you can hit the little call button, and you can talk to Marlo and ask her some questions. She's definitely about either her 5 tips or points, or even her story. If you want to just jump on, you are more than welcome. Just again, hit that little call icon right there, and you can jump on.
So, yeah, no, I was just going to say that, you know, I kind of can look back on it and make it seem like it's such a neat little package, right? But it was a mess. The entire process was a mess. It was a tangled mess. And if I, you know, like if I had to draw it on paper, it would probably look, you know, something like that. No, seriously, like that was it, right?
A lot of scribbles for the podcasters there.
Right. There was no, you know, it wasn't a straight line. Nothing was easy. It took a ton of energy. I was constantly digging in and doing as much as I could to kind of keep my head above water as far as spirituality and leaning on people. I had counseling, I had family, I had friends. You know, like it was not a straight line, and I don't want anybody to think that it is, but it's worth all the work. It's worth all the work, because I can literally say that right now, I've only been doing my freedom coaching really, like for real, since January 1st, because I closed my gym in May of last year, and I grieved the loss of my gym because there was so much about it that, you know, I lost my identity as a fitness coach, you know, here in town, and I kind of, I can't say lost, I relinquished it, right? But I had to then rebrand myself, and that was not an easy process for me. And a lot of people kind of, you know, you lose relationships along the way. I went through all kinds of identity stuff. And so it was really in December of this past year that I sat down one night and I was like, I know exactly, and this is with work, believe me, there was like a lot of workbooks and you know, printables in my files. And I literally dialed in my North Star. And on January 1st, I went for it. You know, and so here I am 2 months in. I've run a program. Actually, I've run 2 free programs. Now I'm running my first 6-week program, which is an amazing program called Finding Your Voice 6 Weeks to Stardom. And that program is, so I built my gym in 6 weeks, okay? 6 weeks. That Finding Your Voice 6 Weeks to Stardom is a blueprint of my process, but cleaned up for everybody else so that they don't have to go through the junk that I went through. But literally taking what I did in 6 weeks and going from point A to point B. So going from a bad place to a good place. And that's what my 6-week program is, you know. So what would you say to someone?
I love to say that, you know, when you're looking for, a lot of individuals will say, you know, I can't do a coach, or I can't afford a coach, or I can't afford a program, or I can't do this.
Right.
And what I like to say is, while you can purchase a bunch of different things out there, and it's great, you know, you got your Facebook ads and your Pinterest and Finding Your Voice, tons of stuff, right?
Right.
But the really big thing that is missing is the how. And that's the beauty of having a coach, right? That's the beauty of having the one-on-ones and having those programs that you're running, and then offering those smaller masterminds and the one-on-ones and the, you know, things like that, because a lot of people don't know how to put it together. Right. They don't know how to take all that information, smorgasbord of all the content that they've ever learned. And that's why I love what I do to simplify people's life and streamline their business. Because the hardest part for people is to put everything together and say, how does this really work for me? Like, how does this work for me? And so, you know, when somebody is sitting there kind of questioning, okay, to start your program or any program or self-development, the one thing I've noticed that you've said multiple times along the way is the self-development aspect. You didn't negate that.
It'll never stop. Right.
So was that something that was ingrained in you, that you love to pursue self-development, or did you have a moment of truth where you said, I'm going to go seek out this wisdom and have get the knowledge and experience, like what you did with that retreat that you went to, and you broke out and you had this amazing epiphany and you went and did it? You know, was self-development always something for you?
To be honest with you, I've always been a grower. I've been a reader since a very, very young age. And I've always been interested in more. And I used to just do a lot of kind of reading out of curiosity, right? And I don't really ever remember applying a lot of that stuff until I hit this situation. So what I had done was I'd actually banked all of this knowledge, which thank goodness it was there, you know, and so that was kind of the beginnings of it. And I had a lot to draw from. I'm a big reader. Like I said, I've always journaled in one way or another. I've always been a talker. So I've always been very open about going to people and asking for advice, or just sitting and having discussions that don't always have an end or don't always have an answer, but just lots of thought, right? But I have to say that when I went through this, it was the first time I'd ever gone to real counseling. And then from that point on, I've always had a coach. I haven't been without a coach since I guess almost 3 years ago. First, I was hiring online coaches for my business because I had no clue what I was doing. And then last year, I actually hired Lori Harder. After I went to the Bliss Project, I hired her as a coach because she had done what I needed to do. She had owned a gym, closed a gym, and literally rebranded herself online. And I said to her at the Bliss Project, I went up to her and I said, I need you to coach me. I need to do exactly what you did. So I think it's a really important piece to note that you need to go to people who have been there, done that. Like, I'm not going to go to my mechanic if I want to get my hair done. Like, let's think of it for a moment, right? So, you kind of have to go to people who've got experience in the area. And so she said, I can help you through it. I've done that. And it was velvety, as good as it could be. It was as beautiful as it could be. And, and so now what I've done is I've turned around and said, okay, I want to help my tribe. I want to help my circle literally go through the muck. And I'm going to say, here are the steps because I've been there. Now, there are going to be people who maybe don't come to me because my story doesn't sound anything like theirs. Maybe they need something completely different, right? But for the people who need to get unstuck, for the people who are ready to launch, for the people who are actually looking for clarity, for the people who need to know that it is okay and that if you do the work, you will arrive, then I can do that.
Absolutely. And I love that. And you know what? The truth of the matter is that's what you said before, is that's why people are so disappointed in coaching and coaches, is because they didn't find they went to the mechanic when they needed their hair done.
Right.
And that's not
working out for you. Right.
And it doesn't. And then you kind of negate the fact that, okay, coaches, and this is the thing, whenever you have a coach, whatever you pay, what you look at it as, that investment is going to yield me more. So right. The cost value of, let's just say $350, per session, or $250, whatever the coaching session is, whatever that person tells me, implemented and put into a place of consistency, is going to yield me right. more, 10 to 20, 30, 50 times more of the value than I actually invested in the coaching.
Oh, gosh.
And honestly, the clarity, sometimes you talk yourself into exactly what you need, and you have that buffer. And so it's really nice. But I would suggest, if you're looking for a coach, like what Marlo was saying, is to research, look, comment, share their stuff, watch their videos, take a look at their blog posts, engage with them, go to some of their masterminds, maybe buy a bigger program of theirs before you go into something deeper into coaching. Because in that period of time, you're going to learn a lot, right. And that's the thing. You're going to learn a lot about that person. I've seen many wonderful people, and then when I meet them in person, I'm kind of really disappointed at what I saw. And so, that is one thing that I can recommend to everybody, is to say that if you want a coach, if you need one, if you go and you're following and liking them and constantly interacting with them, reach out on social media, you're going to learn who they are and a bit more comfortability in that. And then you're going to start learning that the investment is worth it.
Right.
Right. And you're going to see the value in a coach. And so I love how you brought that perspective up, that, that analogy up with the
hairdresser. Yeah.
I think it's pivotal, because a lot of times people go to somebody for a service and they never really research. They just throw money at it thinking, oh, the last program said I needed to do this, but they were too expensive. So I didn't want to do it the right way. I went the cheaper way to figure it out.
Right.
And they end up hurting themselves in the long run, and then blame it on the whole, industry as a whole.
Right.
And so definitely definitely great point in that.
And I think it's really important to note that, it's so funny, the whole kind of coaching, counseling, kind of looking for help. People are so hesitant to get life direction. But
Yeah.
we'll drop $20 on pop and chips in 5 seconds, and we won't even look at the ingredients. And I always think to myself, wow, if we were as conscientious,
yeah,
if we were able to just kind of open-heartedly invest in ourselves a little bit more, the world would be a better place. Because I find, in my experience over the last few years, the people that I have had huge connections with, the people that I have seen, the people that I feel are leaders, thought leaders, growers in the industry, growers in any industry, whatever they are the people who actually open up to growth and who invest in themselves. And if you continue to do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And so if you're always talking to the same people, you're always kind of, surrounding yourself with the same 5, kind of, this is where we're at, and you're going to always be in that place. So one of the things that I started doing is stepping way out of my comfort zone and doing things like, going to events that were held by thought leaders that were respected in their area and looking for mentors. And like, if somebody has what I want, why would I not study them? Why would I not learn what they're doing and say, hey, how did you get here? I mean, it's not rocket science, right? So
most people, they don't want to face the reality. And that's the reason why life coaching is so different, because whenever you deal with a business coach, you should essentially end up dealing with your life. Because they're so very much intertwined, and what you do in your business is a reflection of what you're doing in your life. And and how you're thinking and your health and that type of thing, mentally and physically and spiritually and emotionally and all those great things. And so, the truth of the matter is that they don't want to take accountability. It's very hard to face those things in your life. And so you figure that your business will succeed and that you can kind of have this convincing, facade on cover up. And the truth of the matter is you can't. And so if you really want to know how to be successful in your business, the really big thing is you are going to have to start self-developing, and you're going to have to get a coach, somebody who that you
in that area.
Yes, allow them to see into your life and see that. And that's the difference between, like, let's just say a business coach that's going to guide you just in business, or you have that kind of life and business coach that can see both aspects and bridge them together. Because I look at it as there really is not much of a difference. Right? If you're going through a divorce and you're frustrated and you're not happy at home, it's going to reflect in your videos, your posts, your interaction, your engagement.
Bleed into your work. Absolutely.
It absolutely does. So definitely enjoyed Marlo. She is awesome. Definitely want to respect her time as well. So I put in the chat where you can see on not only the replay, but you're going to see a lot of other people that are going to come up that are entrepreneurs, business owners that have fabulous, amazing stories and are going to show you how they really, push past that and broke through. And you can go to, you can also see it in the chat, www.momentswithtruth.com. And if you want to learn more about Marlo, you can go to
my website. So you can go to www. I'll put it in here, but it's www.body-loft.com. And you can also find me on Facebook, of course. Let me see here, .com. You can find me on Facebook at Marlo Ellis Body Loft, and on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, I mean, I've got some programs that are opening up I have one program in particular at the end of February called Finding Your Voice, 6 Weeks to Stardom. And that really is a program that is taking people through my 6 weeks, my 6-step program. It's kind of like my 6 steps to stardom, and just really taking ownership of your life. And yeah, so that's where people can find me.
Awesome. And I will make sure if you're watching the replay or listening to the podcast, you can always check it out right below in the blog post that I will be putting up in a short time. And if you would like to just even connect with myself, you can go to Tanya Paxit. So it's Tanya patxot.com, and on there you can read a quick bio of myself. You can learn exactly what I do and how I help people simplify their life and streamline their business. You can find all my social media and all the engagement that you ever need to be able to get in contact with me, all on that one page, right? So definitely appreciate Marlo being here. I will put all the information.
Thanks for having me.
Seriously. Absolutely. I'm excited.
I am too. And there's all kinds of other good stuff we're doing that people have to hear about later.
I know, that's what I was gonna say. I'm more excited about what we got in the works. It's hard not to mention it, but you know, patience. So I love it, and definitely follow your passion. It's the pathway to your destiny. And Tanya Paxton, the truthpreneur here. Yes.
Follow your dreams, everybody.
Follow your heart. All right, guys.
Thanks.